Good evening, Gills fans. Welcome back to Gills in the Blood TV. It is Monday review time and also an added match preview as we travel north tomorrow, Tuesday night. Massive trip to the Stadium of Light for our rearranged Sky Bet League One fixture against the mighty Sunderland. But first, let's go back to Saturday and review our vital 1-0 win over informed Scunthorpe, who arrived at the Priestfield on a run of only one defeat in 8, and that was against high-flying Barnsley, who had put us to the sword just 7 days previously. But credit to the boys, credit to Steve Lovell and all the coaching staff. From start to finish, we were absolutely spot on to a man. I thought Steve Lovell got the system correct. I thought the players that came into that system did their jobs to perfection, and I thought we thoroughly deserved our 1-0 win, despite the second half being a bit of a non-event in terms of clear-cut chances for either side. So much better in terms of defensive resilience, so much better in terms of work rate, so much better in terms of pressing and getting in the opposition face and not allowing them to play like we'd done against Barnsley the week before. All in all, just a really good team performance to a man. Everyone was absolutely brilliant. In fairness, I don't think there was anyone that had a really poor game. We did say that Tom Eaves was probably the only one that dropped below the standards that we expect from him, but in fairness, he has raised the bar so high over the last season and a half that we'll forgive him a slightly poor performance, I think. And there's been a few people on social media that have said that he's not interested and he just wants to leave now that he didn't get his move in January. I think that's absolute nonsense, to be quite frank. I think he had a slightly poor game by his own high standards, agreed, but I don't think he was not trying, and I think he was still working hard and putting defenders under pressure. I think he just had one of them days where everything he tried didn't come off, and that happens, and it is only 1 in 9, which is frustrating. But as I say, the amount of goals he scored for us, and thinking about where we'd be if it weren't for his goals over the last 18 months or so to 2 years, I'll allow him a bad game on Saturday. But yeah, defensively really good. The balance in midfield looked so much better with Billy Bingham at the base of the diamond. He allowed the likes of Mark Byrne and Leo da Silva Lopez to bomb on and get in to support the attacking players when needed. But it's not saying that they didn't do their defensive duties, because they did when they had to, and they both worked really hard. And as I've already mentioned, Tom Eaves, also alongside him, Brandon Hanlon was really good. They both worked really hard in tandem and caused the Scunthorpe back line to have an uneasy afternoon. I think Brandon Hanlon was very impressive and did everything but score. But two key words for us, which I've mentioned all season, are consistency and also being resolute. And we were resolute at the weekend. We dug in defensively. Luke O'Neill come back in and was very good. Conor Ogilvie tucked in as a left-sided centre-half, and I thought he was absolutely outstanding alongside Max Amar, who took the skipper's armband, and Barry Fuller just did what Barry Fuller continues to do, and that was give his all and put everything on the line and leave everything out there on the pitch. And behind them four, we had Thomas Ole, who made 2 good saves when he had to. But aside from them 2 stops, he didn't have a lot to do, which was great to see, and that speaks volumes in terms of the performance of those players in front of him. As always, we have a look at Luke Cordell's final paragraph in his match report, and he says this was much better from the Gills, but consistency is key, something they haven't had much of this season. There will be no better test of that when they face one of the division's biggest teams tomorrow night. Correct, we go to Sunderland, to a side that have not lost in the league, and we will talk about them more in the match preview later in the episode. But yeah, back to that defensive resoluteness and resilience, and defending pleases proud Lovell. That's one of the headlines inside the Monday edition of the Medway Messenger. So I'm going to put this quote up now and let you have a quick look at that. Steve said in his interview after the game, I thought Connor, Max, Barry and Luke were brilliant defensively, but they had people in front of them. The midfield defended well and the 3 up front did their part defensively. Goes back to what I've already spoken about. A really good team performance. Everybody doing their job, everybody working hard, everybody fighting for the cause. And even though it wasn't a game full of clear-cut chances, like I've already said, and high on quality for the full 90 minutes, it was about getting the job done, and it was about getting over the line. in what Steve Lovell had described as a must-win game in the run-up to the fixture, and we did that. We played some good stuff at times. We had a goal perhaps slightly harshly ruled out looking at the highlights. Max Amos only just offside, if at all, but in fairness to the linesman, there wasn't many complaints from our players when he put his flag up, so perhaps he has got it right, and maybe I'm being a little bit harsh on that official on that side, because obviously I was miles away from it at the Rainham, so I can't say too much, and I can only look at it on the video, and I've had the benefit of slowing it down, and it is tight, so fair play to the linesman, and maybe he did get it right. But yeah, in terms of match ratings, comparing ourselves and Luke, this was what we did between the four of us on Saturday after the game. That was myself, Stocky, Boz and Gary. So I will read out Luke's ratings first for each player and then ours. So Thomas Holy, 8, 7. Luke O'Neill, 8, 7. Max Amos, 7, 7.5. Conor Ogilvie, 7, 7.5. And Barry Fuller, 7, 7.5. Mark Burns, 7. We gave 8. Billy Bingham, 8. We said 7.5. Probably would have been an 8 if he'd stayed on longer. Leo Da Silva Lopez, we both gave an 8. Graham Burke, Luke gave a 7, we said 7.5. Brandon Hanlon, we both said 8. And Tom Eves, Luke gave 6, we said 6.5. In terms of the substitutes, Luke gave Darren Oldacre a 7, we said 6. And he's not given a rating to Callum Riley or Elliot List. I think we gave 6 and a 6.5. Thought Elliot was really bright in the short time that he did get on. He offered us an outlet at a vital time when we was perhaps starting to sink into our own 6-yard box, and he stretched their back four and got them running back towards their own goal, which was vital at a crucial period. Yeah, so that was the match ratings. We're not too dissimilar though. I don't think we're too far away in terms of us and Luke writing for the Medway Messenger. So yeah, before we get on to the big match preview for tomorrow night, Tuesday, I'm going to have a little in focus and look at 2 players this evening. Excuse me. Brandon Hanlon and Mark Byrne. I did speak about Brandon a few weeks ago, but I do feel I need to speak about him again. A lot of people in the run-up to the game, and it seems every time we lose, people just want to dig out Brandon Hanlon as being nothing more than a non-league striker. There's one particular person on YouTube who tends to do that all the time, but then goes rather quiet when he does have a good game. It'd be interesting to see how many times this individual has watched Brandon Hanlon live this season, and I get that everyone's entitled to their own opinions on the football team and the football club and the way it's run and all that type of thing, and players and how good they are, but for me, Brandon Hanlon's been really decent this season, and I tweeted so over the weekend. We have to remember he's 21. It's his first full season at this level. He's played a lot of games for the first time in his career, so obviously his body's got to adjust to that. And yes, of course, it'd be great if he'd scored a few more goals, but he's got 3, and I don't think we've lost when he's scored them 3 goals, if I recall rightly. First game of the season away at Accrington, we won. Away at Shrewsbury, we drew 2-2, and he also opened the scoring in a 3-0 home win against Fleetwood. It has been a long time since he's found the back of the net, but I don't think it's for want of trying or getting in the right positions, and he also brings a lot more to the side in terms of his pace and his power and his work rate and running in behind, and I don't think there's many people in this squad at the moment that work harder than Brandon Hanlon, and he probably just needs one to roll in off his backside, and I think he could go on a run. And Steve Lovell reiterates that as well, saying all he needs is a goal. He just needs something to go in off his knee. He's doing everything but scoring at the moment. He was excellent. He's a good player, and he just needs a couple of goals under his belt, and it will push him on. And if we go back through games, Burton at home, first home game of the season, he could have had hat-trick. He hit the crossbar first half, he hit the post second half. It was his shot that was saved for Tom Eves to follow up and score in the second half of that game. Saturday was unlucky. There was a nick off the centre half just as he was about to tap it in. Header last week, he got in the right position and sadly headed over at a crucial time. Would probably admit that he should have done better with that, but it would be more concerning for me if Brandon wasn't getting in the right positions. So I'd rather he be getting in these positions and missing chances rather than not having chances. And for me, I think he's done really well in his first season in a struggling side, and I think he can only get better and better with games. And the second person I want to talk about is Mark Byrne, who came up on that graphic as well. Another one who's been the subject of plenty of chat on social media, the likes of Twitter and Facebook over the last few months. Not the player of last season. Doesn't deserve to be in the starting 11. Rubbish, that type of thing. Again, I'm sure Mark Byrne's big enough to admit that he's not been at the standards of last season, but has anyone really, aside from probably Tom Eaves for 2/3 of the season, of those that were here last year. But one thing, again, similar to Brandon, is with Mark Byrne, is you'll never be able to say that he's shirking his responsibility in terms of effort and work rate, and he keeps trying to get on the ball and he keeps trying to make things happen, and maybe he's been played in a position that's slightly alien to him. We don't have a proper holding midfielder, in my opinion, so we have to pigeonhole people into that, and it seems that Mark Byrne's been the frequent choice. But he flourished on Saturday with Billy Bingham back in the side and sitting at the base of that diamond. Burner was moved to the right-hand side, and he was absolutely brilliant from first whistle to last. Got himself into good scoring opportunities. He had one second half that he dragged just wide and was a bit unlucky, and he scored a really good goal first half. And again, that comes back to Billy Bingham being in that position at the base of the diamond, because it allowed Byrne and Leo da Silva Lopez to link up, and he was a joy to watch first half, the lad Lopez, and skipped away from 2 for the goal and a couple of little step overs to deceive another defender, and then his pass was all right into the path of Burner, who didn't even have to break stride, but he's still a really good finish from around 20 or so yards into the bottom corner in front of an empty Brian Moore stand. And I'm really pleased for Mark Byrne, because I think he's a very good midfielder at this level. He's an orthodox centre midfielder, in my opinion. He's not a holder and he's not an attacking midfielder, but you know what you get. He does exactly what he says on the tin, and let's hope that he can kick on and continue to put in them types of performances, and let's hope that Billy Bingham stays fit to allow that to happen. So yeah, that's my 2 in focus this week, Brandon Hanlon and Mark Byrne, both absolutely brilliant at the weekend and played a massive part in our win. But that's enough about Saturday now. We do move on to Tuesday night. We do have a massive game. It is our game in hand in the league. Won't come much bigger this in terms of stadium this season, and we are coming up against these. As I mentioned right at the beginning of the episode, it is the long trek north tomorrow to take on Sunderland at the Stadium of Light. Premier League club in everything but name, you'd imagine. Have had the absolute horror of being relegated in 2 consecutive seasons. This is what we have to remember. 2 years ago they were playing in the Premier League, finished bottom of that division, and then last season, despite all their fans hoping for a promotion but pushed back to the top division, they suffered the enigma of being relegated again in consecutive seasons, finished bottom of the Championship. Simon Grayson went in there and didn't last long, and then Chris Coleman came in and tried to steady the ship and get them out of trouble, but it wasn't to be. And if anyone's watched the Sunderland Till I Die Netflix documentary, it's an incredible watch, to the point where it drags you so far in that you almost feel like you're a Sunderland season ticket holder. I watched it in about 24 hours when I was off work over the Christmas period, and it's an excellent watch for any football fan, regardless of whether you're a Sunderland fan or not. And like I say, it grips you so much that you become emotionally involved in it almost, and you know that you're watching it and you know that it's going to go wrong, and it's like a car crash in slow motion, and you just keep praying that they're going to win football matches and get out of trouble. Such is the way that it's put together, and so well put together. But in terms of this season, they've been really, really good. Their squad's full of absolute quality, players that should be playing in the Championship, players that have played in the Premier League. Just name a few, and this isn't even all of them. John McLaughlin, Tom Flanagan, Jack Baldwin, Lee Cattermole, Chris Maguire, George Honeyman, Aidan McGeady, Max Power, Charlie White. I think Max Power's not even getting in the side at the moment, and neither's Lee Cattermole. And then they bought in Keziah Sterling on loan from Premier League Tottenham in the window, and spent over $4 million on Will Grigg, who's an excellent striker at this level. He's not really hit the ground running in what I've seen in his first few appearances, and he's missed a few chances, but I think Grigg's one of them strikers, as soon as one goes in, he'll go on a bit of a run. And that could be the difference between them ending up in the playoffs and maybe pinching an automatic place. They've got work to do, because they've drawn far too many this season. They've drawn 14 of their 31 games and won 15. They've only lost 2, so they've lost 2 less than Luton, yet they're 12 points behind them at the moment. So that's where their problem lies, turning those performances into wins and translating them draws into victories. But they're a quality side. They were absolutely superb when they came to the Priestfield at the beginning of the season, as were their fans. And on the back of that fixture, it got me following a few Sunderland fans, and especially the Roker Reporter, who's an excellent account on Twitter. And if you are a fan of League One and not particularly Sunderland, again, go and follow it, go and check them out, because it is a brilliant page. And to see talk of Jack Ross being under pressure is an absolute joke for me. If you're a Sunderland fan that thinks he needs to be sacked, then you need your head wobbling, to be quite frank. He's come into a club that was in absolute turmoil, trying to sort out the mess from the Ellis Short and I can't think, is it Bain, the director, Martin Bain, forgive me if I'm wrong, who are quite predominant on the To Sunderland Till I Die documentary. I'm not sure what they expect fans if they think he needs to be sacked. They've lost 2 league games all season. They're unbeaten at the Stadium of Light all season long. And this is a club that you consider didn't win at the Stadium of Light for more than a year, I believe. So he's doing a really good job. He come from Scotland after winning the Scottish Championship, I think, with St Mirren, and he's doing a superb job there. He's completely changed the way the club is in terms of getting players off the wage bill that didn't want to be there, didn't want to play for the shirt. They were just happy to pick up a wage. And one to name is Jack Rodwell, who was quite predominant on the documentary as well. It was that type of player. I'm not saying that Jack Rodwell's a mercenary or anything like that, but it was just a club that was paying massive wages and trying to sort things out in the short term without actually looking at the bigger picture, and it caught up with them massively, and that's why they're in this division. And it's like the old saying, we're too big to go down or whatever. Well, they weren't, unfortunately, because the table don't lie, and that's why they ended up in this league. But they've been superb. I think they're one of them clubs that every other team treats as a cup final and tries to raise their game. In terms of form, this has gone off on a tangent there a little bit, but in terms of form, it's quite weird. Last 6, they have won 1 and drawn 4, so they're unbeaten in them 6, but taken 8 points. No, 3, 4, 5. Yes, 8 points from 18 available, and Gills from their last 6 have won 2, drawn 2 and lost 2, so we have 8 points from 18 available. Last 6 at home for the Mackhams. 1, 2 and drawn 4, so that's 10 points from 18, and Gills have won 3, drawn 1 and lost 2, so weirdly that is 10 points as well, so both mirror each other. Team news for the Gills: Josh Reese apparently was slightly injured at the weekend, that's why he didn't play a part. But for me, if everyone's fit, I would be inclined to go with the same 11 that started. I know Billy Bingham might be struggling because he's not played a lot of football, so it might be a case of wrapping him in cotton wool, but if we can get him out on the pitch and get him another hour, I would go with exactly the same 11 that beat Scunthorpe. It's going to be a bigger test than Scunthorpe, no disrespect to the Iron. Sunderland have got better players. Sunderland have got better players than most teams in this league, aside from probably the likes of Luton, Barnsley and maybe Portsmouth. But yeah, they've drawn far too many, like I've already mentioned. If Gills can go up there and show the same sort of desire and commitment and willingness to run through brick walls and work for each other and do their jobs, then my score prediction is going to be an optimistic and entertaining 1-1 draw. Hoping and praying that Sunderland's drawing run at home at the Stadium of Light continues, and I think that would represent a very decent trip north for the Gills. So yeah, that is my prediction, 1-1. If I'm going to pick a scorer, I will go for the big man to get himself back on the scoring horse and prove a point against the side that were desperate to sign him, if you believe all the rumours, in the January transfer window. So I'm going to say 1-1, Tom Eaves to score the Gillingham goal. As always, thanks for watching, thanks for listening. Please comment and get involved down below on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, all the usual avenues, all the social media outlets. And until next time, up the Gills.